On Two Wheels this week, Wayne actually does get to ride a Yamaha XJR 1300. And Jeff meets a man who, despite losing an arm, is still a keen motorcyclist. And Tommy, Robb and Charlie Williams share some great TT memories with Claire.
Well, he did tell me that he's got something for me to road test that is black and red. It's not this. He thinks he's got one up on me, that Paul Johnston fella. Well, I can tell you he hasn't. What he's done, he's obviously gone into a motorcycle showroom and chosen the biggest bike he could find, on the idea that it's too big for me to ride and do a road test on. Well, he's found this, and understandably, I can see what he means. It's a muscle bike, it's 1300cc, and you think it'd be too big for me. Well, it isn't. In fact, it's perfect. My feet reach the floor. So, I've got me a road test, and he's waiting for me to turn up on it. He's got a long wait.
Oh, look at this. Here's Wayne. Wayne the motorcycle tourer. I think he's been on a world cruise or something. A week I've been waiting.
A week?
I've had 2 shaves, 3 showers.
Do you know, it just felt like an hour or so, that's all.
Well, where have you been?
I've been for a good ride and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself.
And have you learnt anything about the bike in the week? Can you tell us anything? Inform us, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's red. It's a Yamaha and it's 1300cc's.
It is.
I really enjoyed it. Can you sort me out with something else? Yeah. Oh, and by the way, it's run out of petrol.
That's very informative, isn't it? Now you know why we don't let him get involved with road tests. Looks like it's down to me again. So what can I tell you about this XJR 1300 that Wayne hasn't already told you? Well, probably loads and loads. It is indeed 1300cc's. It's a Yamaha, it's big and it's red. There's a bit more to it than that. It's a proper, true retro machine, true retro muscle bike. Retro right from the front to the back. So many bikes these days call themselves retros, but they're not really. They've got a big chrome headlamp, and that's really where the retro theme ends, because they've got monoshocks at the back. Whoever said a monoshock was retro? I don't think so. This one, we're back to the old twin shocks. And even the engine looks retro. Look at that. It's air-cooled. In fact, if you took a picture of that there and said, name the year, you'd probably say 1970 something or 1980 something, because it really does look the part. No fancy fuel injection, 4 Mikuni CV carburetors, all works perfectly well. It's not rocket science, but it's perfect for this kind of machine. Big oil cooler on the front there, and a 5-speed gearbox in this, as opposed to the more normal, or should we say more conventional 6-speed. And I'm led to believe it works perfectly well, although talking to Wayne I would never know that, so looks like I'll have to find out for myself. The first thing you'll find out when you climb aboard the XJR 1300 is that it has to be one of the most comfortable bikes to ride. An excellent padded seat and well-placed bars. In fact, the whole machine feels perfectly balanced. There's plenty enough power, and if you really want to, you can have a go at mixing it with the boy racers. It's nowhere near as fast as some of your more dedicated sports bikes, but with no protection on this naked machine, you really don't want to be hurtling along at ridiculous speeds. It's far more suited to high-speed cruising around the country lanes. It's physically a large machine. You will get noticed on this bike. But having said that, it's not daunting, it's very, very user-friendly. Oh, you may have noticed, you should have noticed, that this is a little bit different to your standard XJR 1300. This, of course, is the SPS version. Now, they all do SPS versions and fancy limited edition versions. Honda do them, Aprilia, Ducati do them with the 996s and all that. So why not have an SPS retro machine like this? Nothing wrong with that. 2 main differences between this and the standard model. One, perhaps the most obvious, is the paint job. Look at that. Yamaha speed blocks, a proper retro paint job if ever I've seen one. Straight off an RD out of the 1970s, that, isn't it? Very smart on the tank, and of course on the tail unit there as well. And you probably not failed to mention the shocks on this are different to your standard. Lots of people use different types of suspension these days. You've got your white power, your Paola, your shower, all them. On this SPS, we're on Öhlins shocks, which are used throughout the world on all the top superbikes. And of course, they're fully adjustable. You can tweak them and tune them and set the bike up exactly the way you want it to feel. Look at that for a nice seat. Not only is it a nice, comfy stepped seat, but it's got all this nice quilting in it, these nice little quilted sections here. Again, perfectly in keeping with this style of machine. Not really much to show you under the seat, but we'll pop it off and have a look. Little compartment there, a couple of bits in there, toolkit there, C-spanners there, so you can have a play with your rear suspension, but nothing very exciting to tell you about under there. But it has got, this bike, two things that I think are really important, that are important to me when I'm looking at a bike. One is up there, a fuel gauge. I think every bike should have a fuel gauge, I keep saying it. And the second thing is, there, can you see it? A main stand. Perfect, makes life a lot easier. So if you are a fan of the retro scene and you're impressed by size, then this could be right up your street. If big really is beautiful, then this is about as good looking as things get. So this is the SPS version, therefore it's much more expensive. Well, no, it's not really that much more expensive. The standard machine, XJR 1300, will cost you £5,800 to put on the road. This SPS model will cost you £6,200, so only just about £400 more, and for your 400 quid, you get a nice paint job and fancy rear suspension. I don't think that's bad, because if you bought the standard bike, you had it painted yourself and you treated yourself to some fancy new shocks, I think you could be looking at the best part of £1,000. So in today's day and age, I don't think that's bad value for money. Now, one other thing we must do. Wayne, one sec. I need you to do me a favour. Just, there's the key. Take it back. Apologise that you've had it for so long. Tell them you won't do it again. Oh, and put some more petrol in it.
Now, riding a bike, if there was one here, is quite a complex operation, isn't it? You've got your brake under your right foot, gear change under your left foot. Right hand, you've got the throttle and the front brake. Left hand, you've got the clutch. So what would you do if you lost your right hand? Well, that happened to Malcolm Gardner, and this is what he did.
Problem being that with modern machines with hydraulic brakes and clutches, that the amount of room that the master cylinder takes, it can't be transferred to the left-hand side. So what we did, we got a dummy lever and fitted it onto the left-hand side and ran a cable across to the original brake lever, so it operates in the normal situation.
And that is, so the hydraulics stay as they are, you're using the standard, and in fact an able-bodied person could still ride the bike then?
Correct.
No trouble, yeah.
And then the throttle, which is transferred also to the left, is exactly the same as the right hand, but you just operate it in the left hand.
Back to front, as I would say,
yes.
but I know what you mean. It's
and then the clutch is immediately below. Yeah. So you can...
And where did you find a throttle like that then?
Well, years ago, Amel used to make them back in the 60s.
Did they?
Probably before farm machinery and things like that.
Yeah.
But, I used it when I was a lot younger, when I rode old British bikes.
Yeah. And that's how it started. And so, how do you coordinate all this with everything on the one hand? I mean, do you get confused with the levers or?
Not really. It's just that you've got to think ahead sometimes, especially if you're arriving at on a hill where you want to be in the right gear to take off, or if you're approaching a situation where you need to apply brakes. Just make sure you control the speed rather than leave everything to the last minute.
Yeah. And so it's no problem rolling the throttle off and using the brake and the clutch?
Because when you ride normally, you assume that you're actually moving the throttle quite considerably, but actually, as you can see, if I pull the clutch in like so, and gradually lever it out, and roll the palm, the whole thing just sort of works just in a conventional manner.
It's a matter of practice makes perfect as well, I suppose.
Yeah,
because obviously, this is not your first bike, is it? And you started many years ago. And
when I was 16, I needed to learn to ride left-handed, and obviously hydraulic brakes weren't available at that stage.
And so, have you got an example of that as well? You've got, well, I know you have. I know you've got some nice British bikes. Can we have a look at one?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, it'd probably be easier to show you on that than perhaps on this one.
Fine. Well, Malcolm, this is a nice. What is it? 500?
Yes,
Yeah.
Jeff. 1937 500 single HRD Comet, which I've rebuilt over a number of years. And
tailored it to your use as well.
Yes, that's right.
So
it's got cable brakes, so it's much easier from the point of view of getting the levers and cables all on the left-hand side.
Yeah. But you've still got, you've got another of those throttles working backwards.
This is actually the original one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
that's the one you took the pattern from. Now, I know you're quite keen on touring and you used the Pan for that and the VFR in the past, but you've also done some competition work as well, haven't you?
Well, just a tiny bit.
Oh, don't be modest. Come on, tell us about that. Yeah.
Done the odd sprint on this one, and in the early days, in the early 60s, we did have a Triumph Tiger 100, which we used for sprinting, myself and a pal. But unfortunately, I came off at Ramsgate on the promenade there, and that sort of curtailed things for a little while.
And were you injured in that? Or
no, no, just a little. They just took me off to the hospital for a checkup. Basically, I was a bit concussed, but I did get a time for the run, but I wasn't sure if they were timing me or the bike.
And what happened to your hand? I mean, that self-releases when you come off?
Yeah, it's made of rubber, and it releases
just snaps off
under pressure. Yeah. It does release. Yeah.
You would have given some complications if they'd left the hand behind, I suppose.
Possibly. Yeah.
Another thing with your hand, I'm fascinated by this, and bionics these days, Malcolm. Have you been tempted by one of these motorised hands?
No, I haven't really gone into it greatly, but the little bit I have seen, it's probably I'm too old in the tooth now to start changing my ways, and I've coped for 40 years in this sort of situation, so...
Can't teach an old dog new tricks, is it?
Possibly, that's it, yeah.
But look, something else, obviously you can ride your bike. We've seen you riding your bike earlier, but something like a Pan, that's a pretty hefty bike to move around. How on earth do you get it up on its centre stand? Or pick it up if you dropped it, but let's concentrate on the centre stand bit.
Well, the centre stand is basically too heavy, the bike is too heavy for me to use, so I just use the side stand. And if I drop it, I'll just have to wait till someone comes along and rescues me.
Right then, Malcolm, you're going to start this up. It's just started to spit with rain as well, so you're going to fire it up?
Unfortunately no, Jeff. When I used it in the Isle of Man at the sprint, it started to run funny after about the third run, and when I was cleaning it the other day, I realised why. The pilot jets disappeared altogether, so I've got to get a new pilot jet. That's another day.
OK, and I better let you get on and try and find that pilot jet somewhere. Thanks a lot, Malcolm.
OK, Jeff, thank you.
And after the break, some great TT memories from Tommy Robb and Charlie Williams. The Isle of Man TT, the most famous biking festival in the world, and everybody has their favourite moments. Recently, Claire caught up with two ex-racers, Tommy Robb and Charlie Williams, to share some of their memories.
Tommy, let's take you back. 1959, your first experience of the big mountain. That's a terrifying thought for me. What was it like for you?
It wasn't as daunting, maybe, as it would be for someone coming off short circuits, because we were used to racing on roads. But certainly when I got there, I thought I must be nearly, when I went around the circuit, the mountain circuit for the first time, which is 37.75 miles, I thought by the time I got to Balloff Bridge, I must be near the end, but I didn't realise it's still another 23 miles or something to do. It was quite frightening. But yeah, a lovely place, a wonderful place. A place that every year when I stepped off the boat, I'd look round the bay at Douglas and think, it's great to be back. And when I was stepping on the boat a fortnight later, I was thinking, thank God I'm leaving the place, you know.
Hard work.
It was good.
It was a World Championship, of course, 1972, my first TT proper, riding in the 125, 250, 350, 500, Formula 750 and 250 production races.
Busy
against
man.
the likes, very busy, yeah.
You must have been exhausted at the end of all that.
Against the likes of Phil Reed and Agostini, Rod Gould, and you know all the champions at the time. Because I say it was a Grand Prix, and it was daunting, but very exciting. And I came away with 5 finishes in the top 6 out of the 6 races, which was incredible.
How on earth do you go about learning something like the TT?
You don't. You've got to go for a number of years before you really know every corner. In the Isle of Man, you're not only racing into the corner, you're racing into the corner after that one, because you've got to come out of this one correct. And Jeff Monty took me around, and by the time we'd got to the Sulby Straight, it got dark on my first time round the mountain circuit, and I was making notes. So he kept telling me what gear he thought you should take this corner in, what gear you should take that one in. And I went back and read this up in bed that night before I went to sleep, and went out for practice the next morning. But it didn't bear any resemblance to my notes, believe you me.
Now, obviously, it's a controversial event, and each year the safety implications keep being brought up. How do you answer those criticisms? Do you think it's an event that's had its day?
No, I don't think it's had its day. It is. I would never try to defend the TT safety record. It is a dangerous circuit. I knew that when I raced there. The guys that race there now, some choose not to race, some go back year after year. It's a very, very dangerous circuit. I don't think it's had its day because it is such a special event. There's nothing like it in the world. You know, there are some road racing, there's some road racing left in Ireland, which is very good, and the Northwest 200 is an exciting circuit, it's exciting racing, but it's not the TT, and it never will be the TT. So I think the TT still, as an event, has got quite a future.
There's been controversy over the TT ever from I remember it, and there probably always will be.
Yeah.
But people go there for the challenge, and it's what people want to do. They still want to ride there, just like people still want to climb Everest.
Can you think of any funny memories of it?
Well, yeah, in 74, John Williams and myself were very good friends, and John was riding a Triumph, and it was an evening practice session, and I came through Kerramore through the left and the right hander, and I saw this Triumph on its side all battered and bruised, and it had only just happened by the looks of it, and no sign of John at all. I couldn't see him, you know, as if someone had just plucked him from the face of the earth, and he'd cleared, it must have been about a 15-foot hedge and landed in someone's front garden.
Oh, I'm sure they were pleased to see him. We've got a strange man in the back garden there going on.
Well, yeah, and he didn't actually get to race that year because his injuries were bad enough to stop him racing at the TT. And then after the TT, John, we had the same sponsor for boots. I was size 9, John was size 7. And his left foot, as a result of this accident, was badly bruised and swollen. So we went to Assen to the Dutch TT after that, and John borrowed my left boot because he could get the size 9 on. But he had this horrible habit, I don't know why he did, but he used to ride with his ankle, his heel, the heel of his boot.
Style,
yeah, but he used the heel of the boot in the chain. And I got my boot back after about 3 weeks after his foot had gone down, but there was no heel on it. It was all worn away where he used to use it, you know, put it in the chain.
I remember when I was riding the works Yamahas one year, they were always oiling plugs, and they had a little pack in the side of the bike that you carried spare plugs in. But by the time I'd got to Ramsey, I'd used up all the plugs, and I thought if I don't get over the mountain when the revs drop, I'm going to be stuck up there at half past 5 in the morning.
Yeah, a bit of a lonely place to be stuck.
And it did.
Yeah.
It got to the gooseneck, and it petered out, died out. And I thought, I'm not staying up here. It was freezing cold. I'd just got out of bed. We'd set off at 4:45, and I spotted a tractor in a field. And I carried a plug spanner in those days. I rushed across to the tractor. I took a plug out of it. It was a short reach plug instead of a long reach. And I put the racing plug into the gentleman's tractor, put the other one in my Yamaha, pushed the Yamaha down the hill the opposite way to the circuit, which you're not supposed to do, and it started. And I got back over the mountain the next 9 or 10 miles back to the start and finish. And there's somebody out there who's got a racing plug in his tractor. Whether it ever started or not, I don't know.
Now, you've obviously hung up your racing boots, but you do have an interest and an involvement in the TT every year. Does nothing entice you to want to get back out there and race? It must be very difficult for you to watch sometimes.
I'm supposed to say no, aren't I? But
yeah, you must do, because that kind of excitement in the pit of your stomach, does that not come back and you think,
of course it does, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do get to ride round. I do the parade lap each year, and I still know the place as
what
well as I ever knew it.
What about competitively? You're never enticed to go back and have another crack?
Oh yeah, but I've certainly had plenty of offers. And then I say to people, I'm too old, and they say, well, Joey Dunlop's almost as old as you, which he is, of course. I can
think of someone who's older than you.
Yeah. I think with all respect, though, I finished second in my last TT. If I went back to the TT, if I did, there's no chance, but if I did, I'd want to be in a situation where I could possibly win. I wouldn't go just for the ride, and that's why I don't do the TT anymore. That's it in a nutshell. I'll only race if I think I can win. What's
it like now when you go back? Do you still have that urge, you know, standing in the pit lane thinking, I want to get out there and do it? Does that take over still?
Yeah, that does take over, but There's also a sane part in my Irish brain that says, thank God I'm not doing it today.
Is there a same part in any motorcyclist racing?
I'm not sure. But what is strange is at the Isle of Man, there's a lady called Gwen just after Beloff Bridge. She wears a white suit and she lives on the straight after Beloff. And I've been waving to Gwen since 1959.
Fantastic.
And I'm riding this year in the year 2000, and I'll still be waving at Gwen as we go past. It's wonderful.
Okay, the TT's not quite the same as it was, but nevertheless it's just such a special event and a special circuit and such an historic event as well.
The Isle of Man undoubtedly is probably a race on its own. Terrific.
If you've got problems with your screws dropping off, especially off the end of a screwdriver like this, and it won't stay on, when you want to get it down in a hole, like to fit this cowling on in a fairing, just use a little bit of blue tack or something similar, or the kids' plasticine, doesn't really matter. Just put a little blob on there, stick the old screwdriver in. There we are, firm and secure. You can pass it down that hole, tighten it up, and when you pull it away, blue tack comes away as well. Dead easy. But what about if you've got the old cheese head type screw and a bladed screwdriver? All you need to do, get yourself a piece of paper, ordinary note paper will do. This happens to be an old envelope. Fold it over the blade, and all you're doing is packing out the blade. Put the old slot over the top of the blade, firmly pushed on like that, and as if by magic, the screw's on, and there you go, no problem.
On Two Wheels next week, a very different kind of TT. Jeff gets to ride Triumph's very latest 600cc superbike.